6 days before he died, Kyle Busch stood in victory lane at Dover Motor Speedway and was asked a simple question. Why do these moments never get old? He smiled and said, because you never know when the last one is. Nobody in that moment could have understood how true those words were about to be. 6 days later, on Thursday, May 21st, 2026, the racing world woke up to news that stopped everything. Kyle Busch, the winningest driver in NASCAR history across its 3 national series, was gone. He was 41 years old. This is the full story of how it happened, who this man was, what he built, and what NASCAR lost on that Thursday after. It started with a statement posted to Kyle Busch's official X account on the morning of May 21st. The words were short and carefully chosen, and they carried an unmistakable weight. Kyle has experienced a severe illness resulting in hospitalization. He is currently undergoing treatment and will not compete in any of his scheduled activities this weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway. We ask for understanding and privacy as our family navigates this situation. That was it. No details about the nature of the illness. No timeline. No statement from NASCAR. No explanation from Richard Childress Racing beyond the announcement that Austin Hill, the team's full-time O'Reilly Auto Parts Series driver, would fill in for Busch in the number 8 Chevrolet at the Coca-Cola 600. Families do not release public statements using the word severe unless they are dealing with something genuinely serious. That word carried weight, and within hours, the weight of it became unbearable. Later that same Thursday, the Busch family, Richard Childress Racing, and NASCAR issued a joint statement. Kyle Busch had died. On behalf of the Busch family, everyone at Richard Childress Racing, and all of NASCAR, we are devastated to announce the sudden and tragic passing of Kyle Busch, the statement read. Our entire NASCAR family is heartbroken by the loss of Kyle Busch. A future Hall of Famer, Kyle was a rare talent, one who comes along once in a generation. He was fierce, he was passionate, he was immensely skilled, and he cared deeply about the sport, and no cause of death was given. The shock that followed was immediate and total. Absolute shock. Very hard to process. Veteran NASCAR driver Brad Keselowski posted on social media. Denny Hamlin, his former teammate and most recent rival, posted, absolutely cannot comprehend this news. We just need to think of his family during this. We love you, KB. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. wrote, there aren't really words for today. I've raced against Kyle for a long time, and anyone who's lined up next to him knows exactly what made him special. He gave you everything he had, every single lap, and he made all of us better for it. Rest easy, Rowdy. The sport won't be the same without you. The Coca-Cola 600, the longest race on the NASCAR calendar at 600 miles, was confirmed to go ahead as scheduled that Sunday. But the garage that would fill Charlotte Motor Speedway that weekend would be a garage and more. To understand the magnitude of what NASCAR lost, you have to go back to the beginning. Kyle Busch was born in Las Vegas, Nevada, the younger brother of Kurt Busch, who would himself become a NASCAR Hall of Famer. The Busch brothers grew up racing, trained by their father Tom, and from the very start it was obvious that Kyle had something. He was ready to compete at NASCAR's top level at the age of 16. A cigarette advertising settlement that restricted tobacco sponsorship in motorsports delayed his debut, and he had to wait until he was 18. When he finally arrived, his older brother Kurt told the world exactly what was coming. If you think I'm good, wait until you see my brother. That turned out to be one of the most accurate predictions in motorsports history. Kyle Busch arrived in the Cup Series in 2005 and won Rookie of the Year. He wasn't just fast. He was relentless, fearless, and completely unwilling to be anything other than himself. That personality, combined with his raw talent, made him one of the most polarizing figures the sport had ever produced. He earned the nickname Rowdy, and then he wore it like a badge of honor. After wins, in front of crowds that mixed cheers with boos, Busch would climb out of his car and take a slow, deliberate bow. He was playing a role, and he knew it. He loved it. The crowds who booed him gave him fuel, and the more fuel they gave him, the faster he seemed to go. By the end of his career, the numbers told a story that no other driver in NASCAR history has come close to matching. 234 combined wins across the Cup Series, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and the Craftsman Truck Series. The all-time record, 34 wins ahead of Richard Petty. 63 Cup Series victories, ranking 9th all-time. 102 O'Reilly Auto Parts Series wins, a record. 69 Truck Series wins, also a record. A Cup Series race winning 19 consecutive seasons from 2005 through 2023. 2 Cup Series championships in 2015 and 2019. Kevin Harvick, the next closest driver in combined wins, has 121. That is how far ahead of everyone else Kyle Busch was. Kyle Busch began his Cup career with Hendrick Motorsports, racing alongside Hall of Famers Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon. He won 4 Cup races across 3 full seasons. But his personality created friction that the team ultimately decided it could not manage, and he was let go in 2007 to make room for Dale Earnhardt Jr. Rick Hendrick said in a statement after Busch's death, "Kyle was one of the most talented drivers I've ever seen and a racer in the truest sense of it. He had a fire and competitive spirit that drove him to be great." That fire found a home at Joe Gibbs Racing, where Busch joined in 2008 and began the most dominant run of his career. Wheeling the iconic yellow number 18 M&M's Toyota, he became a threat every single week at every single track. In 2009 alone, he won 9 O'Reilly Auto Parts Series races and 7 of the 15 Truck Series races in the same year. That kind of versatility across 3 different series at that level of competition had simply never been seen before. But the defining chapter of his Joe Gibbs racing team, and arguably the defining chapter of his entire career, came in 2015. During the O'Reilly Series season opening race at Daytona in February, Busch suffered a catastrophic crash. His car skidded through the infield and struck an unprotected wall, breaking bones in both of his legs. Doctors said he would be out for 6 months. He was back behind the wheel in 3. He won in his 5th race back, then won 3 of the next 4. The rest of the field had a 3-month head start on him, and he ran them all down in a matter of weeks. Then, in the final race of the season at Homestead, with his crew anxiously pacing the pit box, Kyle Busch sat calmly inside his car and sang the theme song to Vocabulary, his then 6-month-old son Brexton's favorite show. It kept him calm. It worked. He crossed the finish line as the 2015 NASCAR Cup Series champion. The recovery process, I wouldn't recommend it if you're trying to achieve a championship, Busch said at the time, but it made us mentally stronger and physically stronger. He won his 2nd championship in 2019, cementing a legacy that was already beyond debate. But after the 2022 season, Joe Gibbs Racing lost its primary sponsor, and Busch was let go. He moved to Richard Childress Racing and took over the number 8 Chevrolet. His first season at RCR in 2023 produced 3 wins, including his final Cup Series victory at Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway on June 4th, 2023. After that, the wins became harder to find. 2024 and 2025 were struggles, and 2026 became a contract year, with Busch's entire future in the sport hanging in the balance at the age of 41. Looking back now, the 2026 season reads like a story that was building toward tragedy from the very first. Before the season even started, Busch revealed that he had suffered a serious leg injury. A stool collapsed while he was fixing a smoke detector. He looked down and his leg was gushing blood. Samantha drove him to the hospital in the middle of the night with his leg propped up on the dashboard covered in towels. He spent more than 3 hours in emergency treatment and received 24 stitches. And then he showed up at Daytona and raced. Not because he had to, because that is who Kyle Busch was. Then came Watkins Glen on May 11th, 2026. With 38 laps to go in a brutal road course race, Busch picked up his radio and calmly told his team that he was going to need a shot. He asked for Dr. William Heisel to meet him at his team bus after the race. He had been battling a sinus cold all week, exacerbated by the intense G-forces and elevation changes of the New York road course. He finished 8th. His best result of the entire 2026 season. He ground through whatever he was feeling and produced his strongest performance of the year, while clearly not operating anywhere close to full capacity. At the time, that radio call was treated as a testament to his toughness. In hindsight, it was something else entirely. Then came Dover on May 15th, 2026. Busch won the Truck Series race, his last victory of any kind. And when Fox Sport Amanda Busick asked him why winning never gets old, he gave the answer that would haunt everyone who heard it days later. You take whatever you can get, man. You never know when the last one is going to be, so cherish them all. Trust me. 6 days after those words, he was hospitalized. Hours after that, he was gone. 3 separate health events in a single season. A leg injury before Daytona. a medical crisis at Watkins Glen, and then a hospitalization described by his own family as a severe illness, a word that families do not use lightly in public statements about the people they love most. The wins and records tell part of the story. The human being behind them tells the rest. Kyle Busch's wife Samantha was his constant. Through the 2015 leg fractures, through every controversy, through every difficult stretch on the track. She drove him to the hospital in the middle of the night before the very season that would end his life. She was there at every stage. His son Brexton changed him. Busch openly described how becoming a father in 2015, the same year he broke his legs and won the championship, shifted something fundamental in how he saw the world. The man who used to race with pure aggression and ego found something bigger than the racetrack, and it showed. Over the years, the boos from the grandstand softened. The fans who had spent years booing him slowly became believers. The heel became an elder statesman. His daughter Lennox joined Brexton in completing a family picture that Busch talked about with clear pride in his final years of racing. Even his long-standing rivalries found resolution. Dale Earnhardt Jr., who had a contentious relationship with Busch for many years, described the turnaround in a post after Busch's death. Kyle and I had a really challenging existence for many, but we luckily took the time to figure out our differences, and that was something he instigated with a conversation in his bus around how we each managed our racing. I was super eager for US to get on better terms, but it was he who made the effort for that to be possible. Earnhardt revealed that the two had been planning to run his late model together at Wilkesboro that very summer. A meeting to fit Busch's seat into the car was scheduled for the Thursday after Busch died. Kyle was one of the greatest drivers in NASCAR history. No one can deny that, Earnhardt wrote. But he was also a father, a husband, brother, son, and a friend to many. My heart is broken for the Busch family. I will never be able to make sense of this loss, but I am thankful that we had found a way to become friends. Jimmy Johnson, his former Hendrick Motorsports teammate, posted, Kyle Busch wasn't just one of the fiercest competitors our sport has ever seen. He was one of the most talented race car drivers I've ever shared a track with. Kyle pushed all of us to be better. His passion, intensity, and love for racing were unmatched, and his impact on this sport will be felt forever. William Byron, who credited Busch with shaping his career, wrote, Kyle was the best mentor you could ever have. He was incredibly unselfish, cared about his people and his family deeply. The tributes came from every corner of motorsport. Chase Briscoe, one of the drivers who went door-to-door with Busch throughout his career, called him easily one of the absolute greatest of all time, and said that two of his favorite wins came racing against KB, precisely because of who he was racing against. John Hunter Nemechek, whom Busch mentored and gave opportunities as a team owner in the Truck Series, called him more than a mentor and a longtime friend. Clint Bowyer, who had been a rival for years, simply wrote, I just talked to him Friday. In complete shock, as we all are. The devastation and sadness is beyond words. Joe Gibbs Racing, the team where Busch spent the greatest years of his career, called him a fierce competitor, an incredible teammate, and, far more importantly, a devoted husband, father, and son. Formula One extended its condolences, remembering Busch as a true competitor and champion. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where he won back-to-back Brickyard 400s in 2015 and 2016, remembered him as a fan favorite, loved for his competitive spirit and passion. NASCAR confirmed the Coca-Cola 600 would go on as scheduled. Austin Hill would drive the number 8 Chevrolet. The sport would continue, because that is what Kyle Busch himself would have wanted. Kyle Busch leaves behind a record that will stand for a generation, possibly longer. 234 combined wins across NASCAR's 3 National Series. That number is 34 wins ahead of Richard Petty, a man widely considered the greatest stock car driver who ever lived before Busch came along. The next closest active competitor is Kevin Harvick at 121, nearly 113 wins behind. Throughout a career that spanned more than 2 decades, Kyle set records in National Series wins, won championships at NASCAR's highest level, and fostered the next generation of drivers as an owner in the Truck Series. NASCAR said in its official statement, his sharp wit and competitive spirit sparked a deep emotional connection with race fans of every age, creating the proud and loyal Rowdy Nation. NASCAR lost a giant of the sport today, far too soon. He is survived by his wife Samantha, his son Brexton, his daughter Lennox, and his brother Kurt, a NASCAR Hall of Famer who once told the world his little brother was going to be special. Kurt was right. Nobody could have imagined just how special or how brief